My guest today is 35-year-old. Are you still 35-year-old?
Yes, I'm still 35 years.
Okay, 35-year-old Adamu Garber, Chief Executive Officer and founder of IPI Solutions Nigeria, a leading cloud computing company headquartered in Lagos State.
Yeah.
So reports, getting to the media says that you want to be Nigeria's next president.
Absolutely, yes.
What motivated you?
Yeah, what motivated me was, if you look into the situation of the country today, we are gradually sunken into crisis everywhere. There are a lot of challenges. Young people are out of jobs. People are dying arbitrarily. A lot of challenges is coming to the country that is pointing to the fact that we are seriously going in a direction whereby if we don't take conscious effort to address these challenges, we will be consumed by it. So the fact that maybe you are comfortable, you have one or two things, you feel like you are exonerated from the crisis means that you are just temporarily exonerated from it, because one day it will reach you straight too. And that is why it is very important for people that understand how to fix these challenges to come up and take political responsibility. And that is actually why I feel like I have what it takes to fix these challenges.
So you did say that you consider yourself fit for, the presidential office.
That's true.
Have there been leadership roles that you have taken that make you feel so?
Yes, absolutely. Let me start with what you mentioned, IPI. I started IPI from nothing in 2008, ground zero, and I was able to build it to what it is today. And it takes leadership to put young people without experience and show them the way and give them focus, and then drive them to actualize those potentials. And then they realize it clearly just within 9 years. At IPI, I'm the oldest person. I'm 35 years. Most of the people that join the company join with relatively zero experience. But they have a direction, they have a focus, they have leadership, and they have structures that enable them to realize their potentials. And they were able to put IPI at the forefront of technology service delivery. Today we are recognized by even 13 international organizations. And we have a lot of competencies and specializations in the services we have been given. And as I mentioned, I'm the oldest person in IPI. So you can see a clear leadership put in place to actualize this dream. And if you go back to my history, when I was in primary school, I was in leadership positions almost all the time, monitor, prefect, all those things in primary schools. I was the founder of my ward's association called Lugere Youth Development Association as the secretary. I became also the president of Jimeta Youth Development Association, my local government. And I became a national president of National Youth Coalition for Sustainable Democracy somewhere in 2002, 2003, 2004. So, and all these things, when you couple and join them together, you will find out that my life history had been about leadership and giving inspiration and direction to people.
I think one thing that you're playing, which of course is an advantage to you, is that you're young. But do you think it's enough being young?
Completely, I don't agree with that. In fact, if age is what you are going to put forward as your manifesto, then you are not doing the right thing, to the best of my knowledge. People need to project competency and their ability and capacity to deliver than the age that they have. So simply because I'm young doesn't mean it's enough for people to vote for me. Of course, some people will have natural emotional sentiments towards young people, but I don't push them to do that. I want them to critically look into our manifesto, digest it. I think they will find it very convincing, and they will find it something that can be able to transit Nigeria from what it is today to one of the great nations in 2035.
Aside from you, we find other young persons who have shown interest in contesting. We have Fela Durotoye. Are you aware of him?
Yes, I think I'm aware. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So my question is that why do we not find young people coming together to pursue this goal? Why do you have to do this separately?
Politics sometimes operate as a marketplace. Like everybody drop his manifesto, and of course the manifestos you have will endear people towards you. My own principle about Nigeria itself is simply as a marketplace. I see Nigeria more as a marketplace than a country that is defined by natural borders. If you check our history, even when British came and drew a line, they drew a line because of our share size, because of our market potentials. When we were in this location, they were able to exploit during slave trade. About 12 million slaves were exported through the Bight of Biafra and the Bight of Benin. in Nigeria. And eventually when slave trade was abolished in 1807, they changed their thinking to item of legitimate commerce when we have the cocoa, the palm kernel, the groundnut, and the cotton. And then they were able to exploit this as a marketplace and then export and make a lot of wealth from Nigeria. So the owner of Nigeria itself, like Sir George Goldie, who owns the Royal Niger Company that changed into Unilever and UAC today, take this country as a marketplace and then was able to exploit the potentialities associated with the free trade with the North Atlantic shores. And what we need to do from independence was to define these possibilities. Immediately we took independence, instead of us to focus on the market potentials of Nigeria, we focused on regional politics and then some divisional tendencies that eventually push us and sunk us into different identity crises that keeps amplifying fault line and that is bringing us to where we are today. So it's a very serious challenge. So what I think we need to do is to redefine the principles of the country itself called Nigeria. And then we understand that when we make this country a marketplace where people can buy and sell to each other freely, where there is a free flow of goods and services, where we take advantage of the supply chain to define world order of today, I believe Nigerians will have more reason to be happier, to stay stronger, and to be more happier. Because if I am a Nigerian, I'm sitting in Anambra, or I am sitting in Enugu, or I'm sitting in Benue, and I have access to 180-something million people's market without paying any border or fine or tariffs, then that means I have every reason why I need to stay within this geography.
INEC Chairman Professor Muhammad Yakubu said, and I quote, "Let me warn political parties and aspirants, we have not released the schedule of activities for the elections. Anything that anybody does is illegal before the law. They should wait for the timetable of the elections," which is to say they are yet to leave bans.
Yes.
So nobody should seek for electoral support, so to speak.
Yes.
Why are you doing this? Is this not breaching the law?
I don't think it's breaching the law. I think it's expression of ambition. Everybody, to have ambition is not a crime. To tell you that I intend to come out for president is not a crime. The only thing that will be a crime is maybe to have a political party, organize a political rally, canvassing for support, identifying myself with certain group of people and then saying that this is the direction. This is where the problem is. But when I said, okay, I intend to come for the president in 2019, I'm aspiring. I'm not contesting yet. I'm aspiring. And then you now tell me that, okay, fine. What do you have when you want to be the president? I tell you, I have A and B and C. I think this is in conformance with the principles of freedom of speech. It's just an expression of ambition.
Would you be contesting independently or joining a political party?
Definitely. I don't believe in neutrality, and I believe in institutionalization as opposed to personalization. So I will have to identify with a political party that conforms to the principles that is going to allow us to further our
PDP, APC, COA?
No, not any of them yet. Not any of them yet. I think my team are discussing, and it's not my decision, it's the decision of the group. We will have to sit down, identify a political platform, then go to them and then discuss our terms and conditions. Principally, these are our programs over a period of this X to Y, and we want you to make sure that you are not going to interfere into this. And we have some key principles that you must accept. Like the principle of this federal character, we want it stopped. Like FAC regime, that's federal account allocation regime, where people come and sit in Abuja and collect money they didn't work for. We want to stop. We want to use that money to build infrastructure, like the institutionalization of religion by separating religion from the politics of the nation. We want to make sure that this is clearly defined. We want to stop that. And several of things. We want to change geopolitical zones to geoeconomic zones. I want to increase this to 9 because we believe Nigeria should be transformed into liberalized capitalist free market economy as opposed to just a very security-defined draconian rules that sends investors away. So all those kind of things. So we have to make sure we agree on these terms before we jump into any political party.
Speaking of terms and policies, did you witness what happened last year, December? The fuel crisis?
Yeah.
That often comes up every December in the country.
Yes.
How do you think you can stop that?
It's a very simple process. You see, I don't know why we Nigerians, we think small. NNPC is supposed to be one of the biggest Nigeria's strategic asset in engagement, diplomatic engagement and negotiations. We need to think NNPC as a big enterprise, like a state-owned enterprise, SOE, that should be able to go and further Nigerian interests worldwide, globally, in defining the energy market, not restricting it to one local area. So what I believe is NNPC should completely only be regulated by government, but it should run away from government. It should be privately run as a private organization. And it should be publicly listed in serious stock exchange in the world so that we can have more money flowing into NNPC from other multinational interests.
But we did that with the electricity sector and...
no, but of course, the electricity sector, if you look at the privatization process, is a sham, somehow, I can say, because there is no defined background check and validation of competency of the people buying the company. It's not more than like I am settling some political interest because I want them to give me some political support in exchange. It's not really bringing in the real enterprise individuals that have demonstrated competency in the field of energy delivery. You understand what I mean? So, but in an NPC, you liberalize it, you deregulate it, you free it, you make it a market, you put it on the public stock exchange, like New York Stock Exchange, like London Stock Exchange, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Nigerian Stock Exchange, allow ordinary people to buy it. Let it run as a profit business. When it gains, people enjoy. When it loses, people suffer. There will be no reason for any labor organization to go and protest. There will be no reason for any marketer to say he's going to define whether the oil should come into the country, fuel should come into the country or not, simply because it's clear that this is now a profit-making organization and it should be defined by the supply and the demand regulations that happens in economics. As simple as that. That's what I feel like we should do to NNPC.
Cattle rustling and herdsmen are appearing to be an issue that the current president cannot handle.
That's true.
And if I'm correct, I think you're from the north.
Absolutely.
How would you handle the herdsmen issue?
It's a simple issue. You see, our approach to this kind of things is usually security and reactionary. Now, if you go deep into the herdsman farmers issue, you find out that the root cause is economics. I am seeing a herdsman who has cattle as somebody who is just having a cow, and a farmer as somebody who just has a farm. No, these guys see these things as wealth. And in the history of global peace negotiations after war, when a conflict occurs as a result of economics, it has the easiest path to having a solution. Now, what is the root cause? The root cause is economics. What do you need to do? You need to make sure easily and simply create a pathway for the herdsmen by defining a ranch. Concentrate them in ranches. They don't need to be moving around. I reared cattle when I was young, from 8 years to 12 years. I was a cattle rearer. My paternal grandfather's cattle. And I know whenever I push my cattle, I have two things I'm looking for. I'm looking for grasses and I'm also looking for water. Those are the two things. When you put them in the ranches, make sure the availability of these grasses and the availability of water. And then it's enough for them. They can move out. And for the farmers, define their boundary. This is where you belong. And this is actually what you need to farm. Then put economics into it. Make them richer. Now, if you look at the millions of liters we import in this country of milk simply because of lack of meeting the demand, within the country, it's a serious problem. But when you concentrate them in one place, make it a huge enterprise like India have done with Amul, one of their companies, Amul, and then allow people that need this milk, like dairy processing industries, to go and be picking their supply from those people, they will not have any reason to move. Then create an economic link between the farmer and the cattle rearman.
And you think the average Fulani headsman, the average Fulani man would buy into this?
Absolutely. I'm telling you, the root of it is economics. When I'm putting my cattle around, I feel like it's only when they move around that I'm going to get more feed for them and they grow bigger. But once you catch them, this is where you belong. And then you put economics into it. You guys are supplying the milk that we need in this country. And then you tell them, even the dungs that the cattle drops, the farmers need it. Now you create a link between them. So the farmer needs them, they need the farmer. They buy food from the farmer buy the dungs from them. And then you create a very strong relationship with them. And then after you define these things, you call them into Aswak. You sign the law, a treaty, a peace treaty between them, and define clearly the terms of this peace treaty, and make it clear to them that whoever violate any of these key treaties, we are going to respond with the full force of the law of the nation on him. Adhere to these laws. You have your land, you have your water, the farmer, you have your land, you have your free area where you can be able to cultivate. Then therefore, whoever violate this peace treaty, we are going to deal with you. I'm telling you, it's over. But when you send the police, or maybe security agencies with bullets. They'll go and create additional cycle of violence, because whenever you kill one, you give opportunity for the next person to persuade other people to join in the killing of the next cycle, and the cycle continues perpetually.
There's a narrative that
Yes.
climate change could be the reason why herdsmen are moving down to the southern parts of Nigeria for to feed their cattle.
Yes.
So would the cattle ranches be also in the southern parts of the country, or just just the north, or both sides?
Frankly speaking, I have house in the north. I live in the north. I was born there. I grew up there. We have boreholes. People there are getting water. All you need to do is to dig your borehole to the level where you can get enough water to feed these animals. It's possible. It's very, very possible. It's just a matter of policy choices that is not even expensive at all. Because people are doing irrigation farming and they are cultivating it. Why can't you put the ranches there? It's just a simple policy choices. Some people, I understand, some people have the belief that, okay, it's a tradition, let them be moving around because that's how it's been happening. It cannot continue like that. Because in many countries in the world, cattle rearing has been their business. In India, in the United States, in South American continent, cattle has been their businesses. And they've been doing ranches, and it's been more successful. That's what I believe.
Programs such as N-Power was created by the Buhari administration to reduce youth and unemployment. Yet, with over a year of indulging unemployed youth across Nigeria, the country's unemployed rate has risen from 14.2 to 18.8%. Do you see any value in creating programs such as N-Power?
It's a complete, to the best of my knowledge, it's just it's not more than a welfare program that is given to people that feel they are entitled. And when you have an entitlement running in the system, you are incentivizing laziness indirectly. What we need to do is to look into our choices of industrialization. Now, our economy is gradually even gravitating towards tertiarization, simply because we have not paid conscious effort in industrialization. Now, how do we get our industrialization policies right? By going back to the farms, by looking into our crop choices. Now, the federal government policy on crops today centered mostly around rice. What is the economic value of rice? Do rice power industrialization? Take, for instance, cocoa. The cocoa power industrialization? It does that. What about palm kernel? What about cotton? For instance, this powers industrialization. If you check, for instance, I usually give example with cotton. You can take it to industry to make it like normal clothes that we wear. From there, you take it to the distribution, more job. From there, you take it to retail, more job. From there, you take it to dry cleaner, more job. From there, the dry cleaner will buy detergent. Another industry chain has happened. From the seed of the cotton, you can have oil, all this oil that we usually cook with. That's another industrialization. Your crop choices should define and enable industrialization. In industrialization, you have more labor demand in industrialization. But when you move into tertiarization, you will have high productivity output, but very less labor demand. And that is why over the period from 1999, according to economic statistics, to 2015, our productivity has risen so high that we have from 256 billion USD to 415 billion USD in our GDP. Meanwhile, the labor productivity has shifted, while the job opportunities just increased by 1%, simply because industries are dying. They are not giving jobs because they are not empowered. Now, if you look at agricultural production, we have about 108 billion USD in agricultural output within this GDP rebasing, while our manufacturing industry have only 35 billion USD. Meanwhile, what you're supposed to see, if you see agriculture giving you 108 billion USD, you should see manufacturing giving you 500 billion USD. That's what it means. So actually, your agriculture should power industrialization. You have to make it a policy that nobody should take raw crop to the market. It's been happening in other countries. You can't be selling rice to me the way you get it from the farm. It has to go through some processing because we need to power jobs. And also in our negotiations, most of the trade that we engage in this country, we import things into the country through middlemen. We don't negotiate in exchange for skills that other countries have done. When you have a mass population and a country with about 25.2% of people out of job, it's a very serious challenge. What you need to do is to make sure you have the right skills. And that is why our education policy is defined around giving skills by making sure we introduce industries into the school system so that you can have, for instance, Julius Berger should have Julius Berger Construction Secondary School. You understand what I mean? Now, when we're importing Toyota into Nigeria, for instance, we don't allow middlemen to bring Toyota. We discuss with Toyota. We are going to bring 2 million Toyota into the country every year in exchange for 100,000 Nigerians to be trained in how to make, assemble, process, and pack Toyota, so that we can have more skills. So in the next 2-3 years, we can ask Toyota to come into Nigeria and set up the plant because we have the local skills. But now what we do is we import the labor, we import the local skills, we import almost everything, and then we allow the youth to go out, and then we didn't enable the economy, and then we're just dishing out some small amount of money saying that we are empowering people. We are not actually empowering, we are incentivizing laziness, because if economy is not automatically designed to suit the power of demand and supply, you cannot be able to get job as you want to get it. You cannot force job. You have to define a policy that will enable it to evolve naturally. That's what I do.
I'm sure, Gaba, that some of the past leaders we had also shared your ideas and, at some point, had such very nice, ideas. Yeah. But one question I want to know from you, that many of the hardest decisions that, if you become president, you would be making in Aso Rock won't be consensus decisions. So what will inform your decision making?
Yes, what we intend to do is, there's what is called national delivery units. They are like task force. They are part of our manifestos. There are key areas where we put them on national delivery unit. The area of skills and job, development, the area of healthcare, and the area of education, and the area of infrastructure. You create a national delivery unit. You don't write them within the bureaucratic ministries. You make them like a task force. This is what I need to do. It should be run like a private organization, like a private business with target, with deliverables and timelines. This is what we need to achieve over this certain period of time. So once you do that, you get things done faster. Because instead of you to pass, you want to maybe create electricity. You want to make sure that you have 20,000, 50,000 megawatts of electricity over the period of 15 years. You don't pass it through Ministry of Power. A lot of bureaucracy and interest is there. You create a national delivery unit with a thin approval process directly reporting to the presidency and make sure you get that delivered. Those 2 billion tons of coal that we have in Enugu, we need to make sure that they are giving us electricity. Those large amount of sunlight that we have in the north, we need to make sure that it is giving us electricity. Now, again, the gas that we have, about 5.8 trillion cubic feet of gas that we have on the ground, we have to harness the build pipeline and give us electricity. These are my targets, and this is the deliverables I want you to achieve, and this is the timeline for which I want it actualized. And then you pursue it. That is exactly how we feel like it should be done. But the previous administration, they usually center around passing it through the ministry. A lot of interests are there. A lot of bureaucrats are within the ministry cycle. A lot of docile, I can say, staffs, within the ministry, who have over a long period of time been weakened and corrupted by the system. We are still part of the system. So, provided you didn't reform the civil service, you don't get that efficient service delivery. So because of immediate demand for these things, you isolate them away from the ministry and define them as part of the national delivery unit and then give a task force.
So you're saying that you'd replace the ministries with...
Not really. The ministry will exist. The ministry would exist, but key deliverables that we need the ministry to achieve, we take it out of the ministry. If we want to have... Now in Nigeria, we have about 193,000 kilometers of roads. From independence to today, we just succeeded in paving 29,000. You can imagine this. How do you still allow Ministry of Works to be building your road when you see this high level inefficiency over the period of 57 years? You don't tolerate that. You take it out. You need 40 million of roads to be built in the country. You need this area and this area and this area. You need to enable your shoreline from Badagry down to Calabar and establish a large port facility to decongest Lagos, so that you need to dredge River Niger so that our river system can carry with the smaller vessels, containers within our hinterland instead of passing our roads and then blocking Lagos State. Those kind of things. You need to do that. Why do you have to wait for ministry to sign some document that in some instances may take months in circulation? You don't have that time. You create a thin line process, a very direct reporting system with the presidency, and then make sure you give a mandate. This is the time I want this thing achieved, and it has to be achieved, and there is no excuse I will be tolerated. I think that is the best way to handle that.
Speaking of time,
yes.
If you eventually become president,
yes.
How much time do you think you would need to carry out?
Yeah, my program actually will last till 2035. But the presidency will remain, if successful, 4 years and 8 years, if successful. So throughout the process, we will make a conscious effort to develop leaders that will continue the policy. It's not issue of me as a person, it's issue of the institution as the presidency. So we'll have a direct plan of building the next leadership that will carry on with this, because our target is to make Nigeria one of the greatest nations in the world. We believe we can. We have all the strategic geographic advantages that will make us what we need to be. And every country that you see is great today has two things that make it that. You have good governance, you have strategic geographic location. We succeeded in having strategic geographic location. We are located with about over 1 billion people sharing our timeline. That means we even have capacity to become financial center and large trading hub for sub-Saharan Africa. We have 853 miles of shoreline in Nigeria. This is huge, and we are belonging to North Atlantic Alliance, the richest nations, United States, Brazil, Europe. All these guys are part of our alliance. This is a very serious thing. We need to flow in USD into our economy by powering our productivity. We have all these opportunities. We have the longest rivers in the world flowing within our hinterland, the River Niger and the River Benue. And we have confluence in Kogi, you know, a very strategic state. We can have different port facilities in Onitsha. We can have port facility in Kogi itself. We have in Zungeru. We have in Jeba. We can even have in Shiroro, you know. And from that side, you can have in Darinkowa River. You can have in Benue. You can have somewhere in Adamawa State. So what we need to do is to harness these our advantages so that things can be cheaper for us. What makes United States great is serious because of Mississippi River. It flows to many countries in US and makes transportation cheaper for goods and services, and it's 8 times cheaper to transport goods on water than on land. So that means everything will be cheaper for us, and then we become great. So I believe strongly that we have all the things we need to become great in this country. And within 15 years, if we deliberately follow our timeline, we are going to be one of the greatest nations in the world.
What's your take on foreign aid?
Frankly speaking, if I have my way, as the president, I will discourage that seriously. There are only a few areas where I mean that maybe tolerate that. In the area of healthcare, rural, and in the area of education, so also rural. But in the area of supporting my government, I would rather negotiate deals with you than to negotiate foreign aid. I want you, if you want to give me aid, assemble all the key business leaders in your country. I'm coming to market Nigeria for them. I'll come with my PowerPoint presentation and discuss Nigeria as a business for you guys. I want you to come in and set up businesses in Nigeria. That is the kind of money I want you to come to Nigeria, not aid, because I believe we are productive people. We can produce.
Sometime earlier this year, Emir of Kano Muhammadu Sanusi raised concerns over the use of drugs.
Yes.
Drug addicts,
Yes.
as bodyguards by political leaders. Subsequently, he called for a law to compel religious and political leaders to undertake drug tests regularly. Do you share those concerns?
I think this is a reaction. It's not the main cause. And I always believe in going to look into the root cause of problems. Why drug abuse? That's the answer. Why are people abusing drugs? Because of idleness, hopelessness, and confusion that their societies have brought them into. Nobody truly understands what is the next second is going to be for Nigeria. No one knows. Even if you come from a rich family or a poor family, you still have that confusion in your life. Most of them succumb to something that will take their mind away from those rubbish thinking. And that is why they go into drugs. What we need to do is the nation have to come up with a very strong policy around giving a sense of direction and hope for Nigerians. Why do you think today we have thriving religious communities in the country? But the churches and the mosques, they are thriving. They are even having a field say in our policy, even creating a lot of problems in the country because of the power they have. It's because we have serious identity crisis. We don't know who we are, and they are marketing hope. So people easily jump to people that sells hope. The country should be the platform where the hope should be reading on, not really other things. So once you did not give them the sense of capacity to remain as one, to understand that they have future in the country, to understand that they have stake in building this nation, and then to come up and work deliberately to build this country as part of their own, as part of the future that guarantees the sustainability of their generations to come, you always have issues. You understand what I mean? So the problem is when you don't do this, you're in trouble. And that is why we, in our manifesto, we have what is called 3R system. The reawakening, the rejuvenation and the renaissance of Nigerian state. Now, from the reawakening model, we intend to run a deliberate campaign nationwide for the period of 2 years involving media agencies, especially media organizations, to define what is to be a Nigeria and why we should believe in the country called Nigeria and why we should take Nigeria as one of the greatest nations that we are always hoping for. You know, the drive to actualize our dream, to understand that we, each and every one of us, have capacity to give one or two things to make this nation what it is today. When you awaken people's consciousness and then you focus it to a given direction, they will have more things to think about to do positively than to go to drugs.
Sometime you did say that, in fact, in an interview with The Nation, you said, in my candid opinion, if I am president, I'll remove both the church and the mosques from Aso Rock and other seats of government. What caused you to say this?
Seriously, I mentioned to you because if you check the history of the global religious involvement in politics, usually religious pair very well when they run as a traditional and cultural anchors than when they join politics, when they become part of politics, because politics is a very sensitive area. Now, if you check what happened in the 30 years war of Europe, that war consumed more than 40 million lives. It's just about religion. If you check when King Henry was doing his revolution, separating church from state, it was all about religion, killing and killing and killing. Now you've seen what happened again, what is currently happening in the Middle Eastern countries. Religious motivated this thing. So once you integrate religion in your policy, you are indirectly amplifying a fault line and creating a process for direct confrontation that will create an endless cycle that will consume everybody in the nation. So the best thing is to clearly separate these institutions from governance.
But removing mosques and churches from the Aso Rock and other seats of government does not exactly separate.
I think it's a symbolic representation of an intention of the president to show you that I don't feel like I come to Aso Rock to pray, but I come to Aso Rock to work. My job is to all Nigerian people. And I don't believe Nigeria have only Muslims and Christians. I believe there are several other religions that also are having right into the nation. And they are also principal stakeholders of the Nigerian project. So as a democratic leader, your job is to protect the interests of minority, regardless of what they believe. And to me, I believe if I truly want to be the real democratic leader, if I am not bringing all the religion inside the Aso Rock, then no religion should exist there. And if even any media agency snap me praying in a mosque because I'm a Muslim, I said I'm going to sue him for libel. Because I am not in Aso Rock to pray, I am there to work. So what I want you to see me first and foremost is as a Nigerian president, not a Muslim or a Christian or the northern or the southern or the eastern or the western or the up or down president, but a Nigerian president. And if I want to do that, I should symbolize it. And part of the symbol is taking out the houses and then making it a free place where everyone can come.
Finally, Mr. Damo, if you were to eventually become president, what would be your priority? If your first day in office, what would you do firstly?
First day in office, when I stay, I have already stated a lot of things, but I'm going to start working immediately about Nigeria's identity crisis. We will have to redefine Nigeria. Everybody have to buy the project called Nigeria. That will be my first thing. And I promise to even give a press conference every week. You see how tight I want it to be so that people can understand that we have a very important place. God has placed us in a very important nation that when we use it, we are all going to benefit. Then the second thing is a deliberate policy to liberate about 160 to 180 million people out of poverty. Because my target is by the end of the administration, if I have opportunity to stay up to 8 years, we will have over 160 million people living above $10 a day with the policies if they are properly implemented. And I believe with this, Nigerians are going to have a journey away from poverty.
So 4 years is not even enough for you.
Prosperity. Yeah, you said?
4 years isn't enough for you.
Yeah, 4 years will set you on a path to doing that. And there are a lot of pointers that will be achieved because there are key low-hanging fruits that you can leverage and achieve that. First and foremost, we need to define ourselves and understand who we are. Second, we need to focus on infrastructure. Now, we need that money that people share in Abuja to build our bridges and roads and to dredge our river Nigers. So each state will create an economic zones, within the country, about 9 economic zones with Lagos as the main central powering center for the entire economic zones. Now, what we need to do is to make sure that each of these zones are powering the state within their locality. So we leverage about the state resources and transform it into business, into a very strong a business output. So what we need to do is, I believe that with this infrastructure empowerment, because we already have regular oil money that I think, in fact, we will definitely, after my administration, we will run away from oil money. We will need that oil to power our productivity. We can't export it again. No. Once we put this policy, the oil that we get and then export to feed ourselves, now will be the oil that will power industrialization. We may even import oil if we're serious. You understand what I mean? So this is exactly what I think we need to do.
All true. I've heard you talk about, very eloquent ideas, which I buy into. But you are yet to say anything about restructuring. Is this not important?
Restructuring, there are key areas where I believe restructuring is okay. Like FARC regime, like removing state of origin and all these things, they are very, very important. They are in conformance with our policy. But the issue of resource control, I don't buy into that. I believe when you look into the entire country, what you need is to pick all countries that succeed in the world, they centralize their resources and concentrate it in key areas of strategic advantage to build their economy. Now, if you make the entire shoreline as energy production zones, you need people to consume that energy, don't you? You need the entire Nigerians to consume that energy. If you make the north as part of the agricultural production zones, you need the entire country to consume that agriculture, don't you? Also, when you make the eastern part of the country as industrial production zones, you need the entire country to leverage the power of this industrialization. You understand what I mean? So now there is this interconnectivity of chain between all the country together. So you pick the entire resources and concentrate it in one, build it, concentrate it on the other, build it, all benefits all. So I believe resource should remain central for the right application with the right policy in the right economic terrain. That's what I believe.
If you are not in support of economic, restructuring of states, how then do you want to make each state viable on its own?
There are ways to incentivize the states. Instead of you as a state consuming from the center, this is an opportunity for you to produce from within. I mentioned about economic zones, central economic zones. Those economic zones are trade hubs for each of those states. Now, what we need to do is investors, businessmen, will go into those areas and see the potentialities of developing that economy in collaboration with state policy, in collaboration with the traditional rulers in those areas and the local authorities. Our intention is to develop that economy as much as possible so that it can be self-sustaining and even contributing to the central government. But some key resources of the country, like oil, like all those key resources, we need them to power infrastructure. Without infrastructure, you cannot achieve anything. The reason why Nigeria has failed to grow for this long period of time is because we pack this money and eat. And that is what is destroying us.
When you find that a state is not viable, what do you do?
I don't think there's any state in Nigeria that is not viable. If you mention one state here today, I will tell you how that state is viable. Very, very viable. There is no state in this country. If you move around this country, there's no state that cannot sustain itself. We just have people that are thinking around, when I'm in government, I am opportune to make money. And those people sit and just collect money freely without working for it. And once you give somebody money free that he didn't work for, you are making him to keep being lazy because it's easy for you to get things. But when you ignite a passion of them rising up to do these things, you disincentivize the politics from the people that are lazy and encourage the serious ones to come in. And then they will harness the potentialities of those states and bring it to actuality and benefits all. There's no state in this country today that cannot economically self-sustain.
Mr. Gabo, out of curiosity, I just want to find out.
Yes.
Being this much young and an entrepreneur, how do you intend to finance your campaigns?
Yeah, it's a challenge, sincerely. But I have a very deep belief that 2019 election is not going to be produced by money. 2019 election is going to be produced by all Nigerians. And I believe in the power of all Nigerians coming together and define a country that works for them and their children and their great-grandchildren. We've seen what voting by money and emotions have done to us since 1999. Where have we been today? So whoever thinks that it's money that is going to use to campaign, if it comes to you, I encourage my people to collect the money, but they should vote for the future of their country. Personally, myself, we are creating a crowdfunding process. We are going to crowdfund the campaign and do a lot of media activities. You understand what I mean? So that's exactly how we intend to fund the campaign. I don't have a godfather somewhere or somebody. I have, as I used to say, I have godfathers and godmothers and godsisters and godbrothers and godsons and goddaughters and god everybody. All Nigerians are the people I expect them to come together so that we can salvage our nation and make it benefit all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Gabu, for honoring our invite for an
Thank you
interview.
very much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you
very much.